It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting, either through my website, emailrevealer.com, just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Now, if you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon. Everything you hear Monday to Friday on AM/FM radio, you can find on the Opperman Report Patreon. The past week, I've been very busy. I've been putting up a lot of free stuff. We got the whole Trump indictment. We have that. We have the unedited version of the Devin Archer transcript before the House Republicans here. There's another version I posted first. It turns out it was an edited version from, I think it was Representative Comar's site page. But we got a hold of the unedited version. That's up there too as well. Plus the Maria Farmer complaint against the FBI. A lot of stuff in the free section too at Opperman Reports on Patreon. Our archives you can find for free at Spreaker.com and Apple Plays. Do a live show every Friday night, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Actually, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I don't know where the hell I am these days. Okay, so you can check that out too at Spreaker.com. There's a chat room, and you get an email notification whenever we put up new content. I'm very excited about our guest today, J.J. Vance. He's got a podcast called Operation GCD, and you can find him too at operationgcd.com. He just brand new to Instagram. There you can see all his pictures of his meals, his dinners, and his food on Instagram. Probably that's to Operation GCD. And we're going to be talking today about the Idaho 4 murders, those college kids that got murdered in Idaho. The suspect under arrest right now is some kind of criminal defense major, and very suspicious circumstances around that case. Mr. J.J. Vance, are you there?
Ed, greetings, sir. Yeah, thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. And J.J. Vance here, and I am the host of the Operation GCD podcast. That's Garbage Can Dude. It's my kind of smart aleck way of saying that I live in a garbage can world. But on my podcast, I bill it as a shenanigan-infused journey into the mind of this particular garbage can dude, myself. And I like to aim to mash together comedy and conspiracy theory in an entertaining fashion and informative fashion. I like to kind of cover topics of secret societies and occult groups and other taboo topics in our current modern era of censorship.
Mm. Yeah, you were telling me off the air too that you're into those things with those I guess Native American mounds that are found around the country.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. I've done a number of podcasts on various my podcasts and other various shows, like recent appearance I did a couple of series I've been doing on the ancient burial mounds with the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast, and Mark Steves, the host over there, is very knowledgeable in the subject of mounds too. So we've both been kind of learning some new mound stuff from each other and diving into some of those topics. But yeah, it's a fascinating culture that used to exist here in America, and they left these burial mounds that have been existing for thousands of years in some instances, and it's quite a fascinating tale of the mound builders.
Well, real quick before we get into the Idaho 4 murders, these mounds, they have like one person buried in there or several? What's the story with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ed. There's actually a variety. It's kind of a sliding scale of sorts. So there are mounds with they've discovered simply one person buried in there, is similar to what we do with graves today, right? In our modern times. But other ones, yeah, there's been very ornately constructed, burial rituals at the base of these mounds with, upwards of a dozen skeletons, oftentimes in like a wheel fashion. So they would have like typically a giant human skeleton, 7 to 9 feet tall, has been recorded as the center of the wheel, and then about 12 skeletons as if they were spokes in a wheel around that skeleton. That's a very common trait amongst a lot of these burial mounds. But then there's also some of the burial mounds, according to the modern science folks in anthropology and ethnology and whatnot, they have concluded that some of these sites were for ritual human sacrifice. So there are different types of burial mounds for sure.
And these are all across the country, not just in one location.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it covers approximately 47 states. There's mounds in, and largely the concentration of the focus of the mounds were in the kind of the Mississippi Valley region, but specifically the oldest ones were out of Central Ohio to and kind of spreading out from there as if Central Ohio, Chillicothe, Ohio, was the bullseye for the oldest mound culture. And that would be so it kind of spread out from there, but reached as far as Illinois, Indiana, that far. But there were different cultures and different times, but these were the ones that are the oldest ones. We're talking roughly 2,500, 3,000 years old.
I've been to, just telling you off the air, I've been to one of those mounds, and it's huge. They had to build staircases next to it. It's a huge, giant mound. How would they even pile the dirt that high, you wonder? But now, do we know what's in every single one of those mounds? Or we just once we've dug up a few of them, we just say, they're all like this?
Yeah, basically your ladder analysis there, yeah. But interesting. So which mound site did you go to? Was this Cahokia?
Yeah, I think it's in Tampa area.
Oh, Tampa. Okay,
yeah.
So they have some big platform mounds down there too. Okay.
Tampa, Bradenton, it could have been.
Yeah, no.
Sarasota, maybe. Yeah, it was around this area. Yeah.
No, that's definitely mound country. I mean, the Seminole tribe's still very prevalent down there, and I'm sure they're the ones that are often attributed to these mounds today, and some of their ancestors may have certainly been involved, but I don't think it's the whole story of as far as who is the mound builders. They weren't just simply the ancestors of our modern tribes, because a lot of the modern tribes, they have gone through different variations of those tribes over centuries here in America.
Okay, we definitely have to have you come back and talk about that. Okay.
No, that'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. And the one you reminded me of in your explanation of the platform mound, there's one in East St. Louis, Illinois, and not Missouri, just right across the river though. And it's called the Cahokia complex of mounds, and it's one of the largest ones still remaining in America as far as like the complexes go. This would have been more like the 1100s, 1200s time frame, supposedly, when these mounds were constructed. But the big one they have there is larger in size in total volume of contents of dirt and whatnot than the Great Pyramid of Giza. So
really?
these are I think it's got to beat by a small margin as far as the footprint, because it's almost like a tiered platform mound is what it looks like today. I mean, presumably it had larger platforms on top and raised higher than it does today, but yeah, I mean the actual footprint at the base of the mound is larger than the footprint there at the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, fascinating. We definitely have to have you come back about that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. That'd be great.
J.J. Vance, okay, tell us about the Idaho 4 murders. These college kids that were all found dead, several of them in this college apartment type of situation. Just tell us the official story, and then tell us what you've dug up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, well, let me preface it by saying and try to alleviate some confusion amongst the folks listening to the show here today, Ed. That how do I get it going from one interest of ancient mounds to murder? But so professionally speaking, I spent 20 years in the U.S. Air Force military police, and then I have an education as well in grad and post-grad in criminal justice. So it is something that's interested me. I'm not exactly a true crime buff by any means or true crime podcaster, but professionally speaking, I've been involved in law enforcement and private detective in retirement as well from the Air Force. So these are subjects that interest me, and I occasionally talk about on my podcast. And the Idaho 4 one I found very intriguing from the beginning, probably much like everyone else did who initially saw some of those reports, because here it is a fairly sleepy college town, and in the essentially a very I wouldn't say rural, but not densely populated area of the United States, when you're talking the Washington-Idaho border over there, where the University of Idaho sits in Moscow, Idaho, and 5 miles just across the border is in Pullman, Washington, is Washington State University. And both of these universities play into this whole saga here with the Idaho 4 quadruple homicide that occurred on the morning of November 13th, 2022. And it seemed like it was a very shocking thing across all media outlets and internationally. I mean, it grabbed some international attention. I recall seeing some news clips in a foreign language out of, I believe it was either Indonesia or Malaysia. I'm not up to speed on my island nations of the South Pacific there, but they were covering this case. So I mean, it really did grab international headlines when four University of Idaho college students were murdered in their home, and the investigation almost seemed like a cold case immediately, the way some of the law enforcement authorities were handling it, because I think that was the other factor that really grasped. Not only was it a tragic event, but then there was the aftermath of the immediate reaction to the event, and I think the culmination of those two factors that kind of grabbed international attention, if you will.
Yeah, it was odd that the investigators were very tight-lipped, and then also too there were survivors in the homes where these silent murders took place.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. There were survivors in the home, and the silent murders took place, and the way and to the point where with law enforcement's behavior immediately in the immediate aftermath of the obviously tragic murders that occurred there, very frightening again for a small town that doesn't this isn't the type of thing that's normally obviously occurring in that town. Not they do have homicides, but few and far between it seems, and certainly not quadruple homicides of 4 young adults who were supposedly sleeping there in their home. So I could see where that would be a frightening experience for the local townsfolk there in Moscow and Pullman as well. But yeah, especially with the way the police handled it, they immediately came out, gave their first press conference on, I believe, on or about November 16th, so 3 days later. And in that press conference, it's really the only press conference that law enforcement truly fielded questions. So within 2 weeks of that press conference, they'd reduced the ability to ask questions at their press conferences down to 0 questions, and from the media. And after that was the Thanksgiving break. After the Thanksgiving break, the Moscow PD, the Idaho State Police, and I believe the local prosecutor's office there in Latah County, where Moscow sits, they all had kind of combined in doing no more independent press conferences or interviews, and combined into one function where they were having only one reporter meet them in an office, and they would be given a list of questions. Well, they would have to provide the list of questions in advance. This is according to some local media outlets that got denied interviews and stuff because it got reduced to one reporter with the police chief, James Fry of Moscow PD, at one time, and again with apparently a scrutinized list of questions.
Moscow PD. How many? What's the population of Moscow?
Moscow, I think, is approximately 40,000 people, and it seems the student population's about, I think, 35 to 40% of that. So you got to think with the folks supporting in the faculty and other employees and support roles of that university, you have to kind of consider that's probably closer to 60% of the entire town is related to that, in some capacity to the university.
Is there a campus PD as well?
That's a good question, Ed. There's not. So they have the campus division of the Moscow PD, and in fact, one interesting note of fact to that department, to that division, the chief or the captain of the campus PD division just retired a few weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4.
Oh, really? No, and the Moscow PD is, and how many cops are you looking at there?
I believe approximately 40.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And then they have the Latah County Sheriff's Department there, which is Moscow being the capital seat there, or the county seat. So they have, I believe, approximately the same size road patrol out of the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, so then what is the official story here by the cops?
So it was interesting that the route law enforcement took, as you pointed out. There were 2 surviving roommates in the silent murders that occurred at this house on November 13th. And those 2 roommates have not made any public statements or been seen publicly since. Law enforcement allegedly interviewed both of those roommates, and one of them, and I find this to be one of the most intriguing aspects of and or anomalies of this entire case or investigation, as a individual such as myself looking into their the official narrative and affidavits of the investigation and the court filings. You kind of expect the police to focus on both the roommates. But however, looking at all their files and stuff, they've only focused on one roommate, and the entire case is contingent upon only one of the 2 surviving roommates as far as the state's concerned. However, Koberger's defense is taking the opposite position. So the roommate that's being completely ignored by the state, and they're pretending like she wasn't even there, she's not mentioned in any document, except for allegedly one document saying that they did interview her, but she's not listed in the witness statements allegedly testing seeing Koberger at the scene. That's the roommate, Dylan Mortensen, the surviving roommate. The other one surviving roommate is Bethany Funk,